There have been many questions surrounding the FNAF storyline for a time in the YouTube sphere. Who is the puppet? How many purple guys are there? Who did the bite of 87? What is the timeline? But one question has lingered for this entire time, and only now do I think we have anything close to all the answers. FNAF Ultimate Custom Night is out, as well as the FNAF novel finale, The Fourth Closet. And now we finally have an answer to the first question. Who is Golden Freddy? As well as a new realization. Who do you play as in Ultimate Custom Night? Why are you there? How do the books fit into this? And who is the one he should not have killed? Fair warning, this will spoil major events of the Fourth Closet and Ultimate Custom Night. Years ago I made a video when FNAF 4 had just came out, about Fredbear and Golden Freddy, their similarities, their differences, but mostly evidence-based speculation about if they were the same animatronic. I went over what we did know, what we didn't have proof of, and I concluded that Golden Freddy was probably a Fredbear animatronic, but not the one we see in FNAF 4. Back then, I felt there wasn't enough proof to say that they were one and the same, but today I know I was wrong. Golden Freddy is that specific Fredbear. The evidence as of Ultimate Custom Night is overwhelming, but we were actually given all the proof we needed in FNAF 4. What do we see happen in that game? Think back to FNAF 4. The crying child we play as, who the security survival logbook suggests is Michael Afton, is raised up into the mouth of a Fredbear animatronic by his brother's little gang. His head gets stuck and Fredbear crunches down on his head, putting him into what we can assume is some sort of coma or critical condition that requires a hospital stay. The game cuts to black afterwards, but in this case, what we don't see is equally as important as the things we do. We see the kid get crunched and we hear the hospital flatline in the game's ending, but we don't see how the kid got from inside Fredbear's mouth to the hospital. This is the smoking gun. These animatronics are more than adult size. If a kid is stuck in the mouth of a nearly 6-7 foot tall bear, there's no way you can just pull him out without risking more harm. So what do you do in this safety emergency? You bring the beast down. You break the legs or do something that in some way prevents it from standing up. That gets the kid lower, but it doesn't save them. They're still stuck in the bear trap. So what do? You break the jaw and you pull the kid out. Now think back. What are the defining characteristics of Golden Freddy? They lie limp, never shown standing in any of the games, with a gaping open mouth. A mouth that was broken to save a child. Not some hint to the bite of 87, but a confirmation in regards to a machine that used to be able to stand and talk, but can no longer do so. Regardless to any unnecessary animatronic finger counts or hat colors, these two characters are the same physical animatronic. The narrative doesn't work in any other way. Scott Cawthon doesn't show us things for nothing. Everything is deliberate. In a way, FNAF 4 is both our introduction to Michael Afton and Golden Freddy. Why? Because they're connected in a way that is hard to explain without talking about the books. The Five Nights at Freddy's novels tell an alternate version of the FNAF story, more focused on the human characters in the universe. Scott said it himself, and I quote, "So yes, the book is canon, just as the games are. That doesn't mean that they are intended to fit together like two puzzle pieces. I would actually ask anyone wanting to read the book, even if you are a devout fan of the games, to read the book for the sake of enjoying the book, and don't try to solve anything. The book is a reimagining of the Five Nights at Freddy's story, and if you go into it with that mindset, I think you will really enjoy it." Smiley face. With this, Scott isn't lying. The books don't fit into the games like a puzzle, but what Scott didn't say was how they really fit together. The books focus more on some lore elements than the games do. The games explore more surrounding Remnant, while the books detail possession and spirits more. The games focus on animatronics, and the books focus on human characters, telling different events that hardly ever overlap. The timelines do differ, but to my surprise, not by very much, at least until towards the end. Both the book and the games center around two families, Henry and William Afton. William Afton has 3 children, a son named Michael, an older son who is never named, and a daughter named Elizabeth. Henry has a daughter named Charlotte and a son named Sammy. The books never talk about Afton's kids beyond Elizabeth, but based on the other similarities, they probably exist in some capacity unseen. Henry and William co-own and run a business, Fredbear's Family Diner. Originally, I thought this was where things diverged and we had two distinct timelines, but no, things actually seem to have been roughly the same in both timelines at this point. During a workday, Charlotte finds herself trapped outside the diner where William Afton proceeds to murder her and leave her body in the alley. In the books, this event is never seen or retold by anyone, but this is likely because the only living witness to this event was William Afton himself. A security puppet animatronic that Henry had in the diner was unable to save her, and in the end it finds itself in the alley with her, her soul binding to the puppet and creating the puppet that we know today. It's unclear if the puppet exists in the books, but the novel's narrative only suggests that bodies of the dead need to be present for any kind of spiritual attachment to occur. It's possible that the puppet is the one giving the life to the animatronics in the books too. Now, you may be asking, why is this relevant? What does this have to do with Golden Freddy? Well, it matters because it pins down a timeline of events. In Sister Location, the private room TV Easter egg confirms that FNAF 4 takes place in 1983. Now, if the books line up with the games as well as it seems, that means that Henry's daughter was killed that same year. On the last page of the fourth closet, her tombstone reads as following: Beloved daughter, Charlotte Emily, 1980 to 1983. If the timelines are as similar as it looks like they are, I think this answers another question that the fans have had since FNAF 4 came out. Why was little Michael afraid of the animatronics? I think, earlier that year, he was there at Fredbear's Family Diner the night Charlie was murdered. He may have even saw William lure her outside in the spring Bonnie suit. Then you'd have a child traumatized by witnessing a crime, and when he had to go back for his own birthday, he feared the same thing would happen to him, not knowing that it was his own father who did it. Another event that the books have confirmed to have had happen in both timelines is the creation of Circus Baby. In the FNAF World DLC ending, the mysterious figure referred to as the Desk Man speaks very cryptically to the player. The game implies that this desk man is the creator of Circus Baby, as she makes her first in-game appearance upon his mysterious death. He says the following lines when you meet him for the first times. What are you doing here? I'm busy. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Now it's all a mess. Of course, now there is only one thing to do. Come back later, and maybe I will tell you more. Upon visiting him a second time, he says, it's a vicious cycle, you know. But then most things are. The pendulum swings one way, then it swings the other. Now we return to darkness. Something terrible is coming. Come back later, maybe I will tell you more. All these lines sound very vague, but the books shed light on this. In FNAF The Fourth Closet, it is revealed that Henry, grieving over his dead daughter, made 4 different dolls in her image, representing her in different stages of her life that she never got to live. One was an infant who cried and cried. One was a little toddler-sized child who would carry a teacup and dish around on a track. The third was a teenager, an animatronic with an advanced learning AI, nearly a synthetic person. And the fourth was Circus Baby, an unfinished attempt by a madman who had so much rage and grief towards the baby. When he first activated her, his first words were, "You are wrong." Not long after he stored away the unfinished baby, he used a special animatronic to commit suicide. When out of context, Deskman's dialogue looks confusing, but if it was Henry, it makes perfect sense. Look at the last few lines from Deskman. But my mind isn't right. I've made something terrible. Her name is Baby. It's too late to deactivate her. I'm sorry. Deskman is definitely an allegory for Henry within the game's universe. Henry originally created Baby only to seal her away unfinished in a hidden room in his house, only for her to be let loose and then be found by William Afton, who modifies her for his own goals. In Sister Location, William Afton had already found Baby and modified her to be one of his child snatchers, animatronics with a special compartment in their stomachs to steal children. And that's when the important stuff happens. In the canceled due to leaks promo image for Sister Location, a hidden paragraph of text describes how the grand opening of Circus Baby's Pizza World was canceled. In the game, it's revealed that during a preview of some sort, Circus Baby came into contact with Elizabeth Afton with no one else around, and this caused her child-snatching programming to activate, killing and storing Elizabeth on the spot. Very similarly, this event happens in the fourth closet as well. However, Baby herself gives a bit more detail into how it works.
Then there was screaming,
The imposter repeated.
It was coming for me.
She paused and pointed to her own head with a look of curiosity.
But I remember seeing her scream. It's strange to remember the same moment from two pairs of eyes, but then we were one.
The way Baby describes this happening brings a very important concept to light. She has recorded memories from before she killed Elizabeth. What if some animatronics had means of recording and storing memories of the things they had experienced? FNAF 2 had animatronics connected to a criminal database, able to spot a predator from a mile away. Henry created Baby, but he also created, at least in part, most of the other animatronics, including Spring Bonnie and Fredbear. Henry created Baby in the 80s. It's possible all of his animatronics were way more advanced than the time would permit. I don't think it's impossible for Fredbear to have a computer brain and camera eyes to record what's happening too. However, one of the last things Baby says in the book makes this revelation even more significant. She says the following.
Henry abandoned me. Of course I could not comprehend those memories until I received a soul of my own. Once I took it for myself.
She smiled.
Once I had endowed myself with a soul, I experienced those memories anew, not as an uncomprehending toy.
What Baby says here has massive implications. By her own admission, Baby isn't Elizabeth. She is using Elizabeth's soul as her own. She has Elizabeth's memories, but she's behaving on her own accord using her new soul as a way to process the things she's now able to feel. This might be why Henry says what he says at the end of FNAF 6.
They don't belong to you.
But what if there was another animatronic who could do this too? Let me paint you a picture. A boy nearly dies in the hospital, flatlining after beginning to succumb to the trauma of a massive head injury from his birthday party. The injury was an accident, his head being crushed by the jaws of a man-sized robotic bear, only doing its job to bring fantasy and fun to the kids that visited him. The only way to save the boy was to break the bear. So broken it could never bring joy to kids again. It could no longer move its mouth to speak or stand to dance, only lie there, a defective reminder of a time long past. Because of the accident, the bear was stored away in a safe room with its rabbit companion, and later moved to a safe room in a different establishment, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. There, William Afton dons the Spring Bonnie animatronic suit from the safe room and lures and kills 5 children: Fritz, Gabriel, Susie, Jeremy, and Cassidy. In the cover of night in a closed pizzeria, he hides the first 4 children's bodies inside of the animatronics on stage. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy now filled to the brim with the dead. However, there was no stage performer to stuff Cassidy into, so William goes back into the safe room, hides the dead child inside of the broken Fredbear that had laid there untouched for who knows how long. Unbeknownst to Afton, his first victim, Charlotte, still roams the halls in the form of the puppet. She gives the spark of life to the first 4 animatronics, letting the hauntings begin. However, the 5th child was given life, but not means to use it. From death to a broken body that cannot move, cannot speak. But with this spirit being given to this broken machine, a realization was made. A thought, a feeling, not from a child, but from a machine. This broken Fredbear inherits the spirit of Cassidy, feeling their suffering, but also now able to feel its own. It was the leader of a show, the one on the mic, the singer, the star, now unable to dance and unable to sing, only able to writhe in place, a shadow of its former self. Its hat dulled in color, looking more black than purple. It stayed on the property for years unseen in the secret room, falling apart, later moved to a different location-safe room, and then perhaps back again. Eventually winding up in a place worn down, rain pouring in from the ceiling as the building lay uninhabited. A business left to rot after everything fell down. But then William came back. One thing leads to another, and now the 5 spirits are set free, finally able to rest. Or so it seems. Perhaps they all did, or maybe all but one did. Ultimate Custom Night has several animatronics make reference to the one you shouldn't have killed.
I am remade, but not by you, by the one you should not have killed.
Originally, I think everyone wanted to think that Ultimate Custom Night was essentially hell, or some sort of torturous afterlife for William Afton. But I don't think so. The Old Man Consequences Easter egg makes it seem like William is getting his own punishment. Do you want to know what I think happened? I think Ultimate Custom Night is a kind of purgatory for Michael Afton after he dies in FNAF 6. After he dies in the fire, he is unable to pass on to the afterlife because something is holding on to him. Something has him in its grips, between its teeth, just like it did before. After all the children have passed on, had their cake, gone into the afterlife, there remains one who was forgotten about. A big, yellow bear, a robotic bear who through a tragedy managed to acquire a soul of its own. And with that soul, it could look back at what happened to itself and actually feel something. It remembers performing and making children happy, bringing fantasy and fun. I think Fredbear, the actual animatronic given life by inheriting the soul of Cassidy, is the one that Michael should not have killed. Michael got stuck in his mouth, and if that never happened, he would have never been broken, left unable to perform. And the moment Fredbear gained a soul, he realized that he was already dead, his purpose forever out of reach. And so, when Michael died, Fredbear held on to him one last time and forced him into a final night, one that he'd have to triumph over to finally cross over to the other side. One final night where all the things he had encountered in his rough life would come back to haunt him. The phantoms, the victims, the happy frogs, the nightmares that kept him up at night as a kid. And only after succeeding to survive one last night at Freddy's could he pass on with the last thing he sees being the same broken bear struggling in the darkness, trying so hard to stand but never being able to. That is my Five Nights at Freddy's theory. End communication.